There are so many ways for physicians to get involved in startups, whether as founders, consultants, advisors, or even clinical team members. The skills you already have are actually exactly what startups need. Many physicians come to me and say, should I get my MBA? Should I go get a clinical informatics degree? And I think you guys are educated enough. I think you have a lot of degrees and a lot of experience. And I would love to walk you through some of the different things that I see physicians working on in the startup world and things that you can get paid for and things that can really make a meaningful impact. Hey, welcome to Startup Physicians. I'm Alison Curfman, and I am thrilled to have you join me on this journey. This podcast is all about helping physicians explore the exciting opportunities that are waiting for us in the startup world. So whether you've been curious about launching your own company, consulting for innovative health tech startups, or simply exploring what's out there, you're in the right place. I'd like to start by sharing a little about myself and why this work means so much to me. I'm a practicing pediatric emergency physician, but a few years ago, my path took a pretty dramatic turn. I co-founded a company called Imagine Pediatrics, which focuses on delivering care to high-risk children on Medicaid. Over the course of just a couple of years, we scaled to over 300 employees, served more than 25,000 children, and reached a 9-figure valuation. That journey really changed everything for me. It showed me what's possible when physicians and entrepreneurs come together to reimagine healthcare. It also opened my eyes to how much potential we as physicians have to drive innovation and make a meaningful impact far beyond the walls of a hospital or clinic. But here's the thing, I had no idea how to get started when I began this journey. I actually didn't know anything about startups, private equity, or even how to pitch an idea. And that's why I'm so passionate about this podcast. I really want to share what I've learned along the way to give you a roadmap to navigate this world. So, what can you expect from startup physicians? In future episodes, we'll dive into topics like design thinking, private equity, product development, and how to position yourself in the startup world. We will hear from inspiring guests, including physicians who've made the leap and startup leaders who understand the value of clinical expertise. Today, though, I want to focus on my own journey, how I went from a full-time practicing emergency physician to launching a startup, and why I believe this is such an important time for physicians to step into this space. So let's start with a question. Why startups? Why should physicians even care about this world? The truth is, healthcare is changing faster than ever before. From AI and digital health tools to new population health models, we are in the middle of a transformation. But a lot of these changes are happening without meaningful input from the people who know patients best, physicians. That's a problem. Without us at the table, these solutions risk being impractical, inefficient, or even harmful. Startups are very different from traditional healthcare systems. They're agile, mission-driven, and willing to take risks. They're not bogged down by the bureaucracy that can make changes in hospitals feel impossible. But here's the catch. Speed doesn't always equal quality. That's where we come in. Physicians have the ability to bring an invaluable perspective. We know what works and what doesn't, and we know what's safe for patients. We understand patient care in a way that no one else does, and startups need that expertise. I wanted to share a story that really shaped my journey into the startup world. When I was working in an academic pediatric emergency department, we'd often get calls from rural hospitals asking for help with critically ill children. One night, I got a call from a doctor in a rural emergency department who said, I have a very sick little boy and I don't know what's wrong with him, but I need to get him to pediatric care as fast as possible. And we're putting him on a helicopter. At that point, we had almost no information about him, no real history, no vital signs, and no ability to assess his physical exam. Tragically, he had an unrecognized head injury and he didn't survive the flight. I was so devastated about this case, and I couldn't stop thinking that something as simple as video technology to connect with other departments could have made all the difference. And that really sparked my interest in telemedicine and telehealth. This was back in 2014 when, at the time, telehealth was not common in healthcare, but it was starting to gain traction in stroke care for TPA administration, but it really wasn't being used at all in pediatrics. So I started working on projects to change that, but the barriers were immense. So there was no payment model for telehealth, and there was no policy or best practices around it. And there was truly no evidence base about how to use technology in this way in our clinical practice. So I connected with a group of like-minded leaders, and we launched a national telehealth research network for pediatrics. And the goal with that was really to try to start establishing best practices and create a really good collaborative network where we could help build an evidence base for something that hadn't been done before. So it was called Sprout, and it eventually became part of the American Academy of Pediatrics. That was my first taste of building something from the ground up. And it really showed me the power of identifying a need, designing a solution, and then pushing through barriers to make it happen. Fast forward a few years, and I found myself leading virtual care programs for pediatrics for a large hospital system. Our flagship program focused on children with complex medical needs. It was a population health program that used virtual care to provide an extra layer of support for these families who often felt truly abandoned by the healthcare system. They struggle to coordinate their care, navigate appointments, and manage crises in their households. And all of this is just they're trying to keep their child alive. So we built a program to support these families, and it really worked. Over 2 years, we reduced their hospitalizations by 35% and cut their ER visits in half just by providing more support for these families virtually, which was really meaningful work and really significant results. But there was a catch. The program didn't work financially in a fee-for-service system. So it was really based on value-based care principles of really investing in a population to help keep them healthy and out of the hospital. But we were operating in a fee-for-service system. So there was really no billing code for the services we were providing. We were operating a pilot to prove that the concept could work, but really hoped to get into value-based contracts. But when budgets tightened during the pandemic, the program was very unfortunately shut down. I was really devastated about the loss of this program because I felt like we were doing incredibly meaningful work, and it was the middle of the pandemic. I was still working in the ER, and I felt like every shift that I was working, these children were coming in to the emergency department in the middle of COVID, and they were kids we had previously kept out of the hospital for 2 years. So that was really a turning point for me. I knew we had something valuable. We had a model that was really working clinically, but it needed the right financial structure to succeed. And that's when my colleague, Megan, suggested that we just start our own company. And at first I thought she was crazy. I said, I have no idea how to do that, and I don't know how to launch a business. But eventually her confidence and vision really convinced me to move forward with her. So our first step was to pitch our idea to a local startup accelerator, which I had no idea what a startup accelerator is. It's basically an organization that can help really early stage concepts and ideas have an environment to try to get some traction. And they provide resources, and they, for us, provided some coaching. So we pitched to them and they accepted us into their coaching program. And I was still debating if I really felt committed enough to this to like quit my job and actually not take an income and try and build something where the stakes were really high. After that, things started to move faster than I ever imagined. I came to Megan one day and told her that I was willing to quit my job. I was willing to put it all on the line to build this with her. And that same night, I received a message on LinkedIn from a private equity firm in Nashville that had come across our research. They were specifically looking to invest in pediatric complex care, and they reached out because they wanted to learn more about what we had built. Within a matter of days, Megan and I had a video call with them and had an incredible synergy. And then a few days later, we were on a plane to Nashville to meet with the team. That firm was called Rubicon Founders, and it's led by one of the most well-known entrepreneurs and healthcare leaders in the country, Adam Bowler. And their interest in our idea was both humbling and energizing. I was actually pretty shocked that someone was so interested in investing in pediatrics, because my entire career, I have felt that pediatrics is very overlooked when it comes to funding and innovation. But in Adam's experience, he had previously built one of the first home-based medical groups for chronically ill seniors called Landmark Health. And while he was building that, he was often asked, could you include children in your model? And he thought about it and said, yeah, I think you could build a model like this for children, but not in this company. It would need to be something totally separate. So when he started Rubicon Founders, this was one of the first concepts that they wanted to do discovery on. And that's when they came across our paper. So the first meeting was really intense and also exciting. We were surrounded by experts in finance, healthcare economics, and operations, and they immediately saw the potential of this concept. By the end of our visit to Nashville, we knew this was the right partnership. And Rubicon Founders offered to incubate Imagine Pediatrics within their firm, which would give us the resources, connections, and mentorship we needed to turn this idea into a full-fledged company. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but also a leap of faith. I had an established life in St. Louis, Missouri, and we lived close to family. And my husband is also a physician and has an outpatient practice. But within a few weeks, we made the leap and quit our jobs. We sold our home, bought a new house sight unseen in Nashville. I thought we were going to be homeless for a while because the housing market was crazy. And I really dove headfirst into this new world. Along with Megan and a couple other co-founders that came on board, we started incubating the company in 2022. And that year was nothing short of a crash course in startups. I joke that as soon as Megan and I started this opportunity, I went to the library and checked out a bunch of books like Startups for Dummies, because I was like, I don't know what any of these words even mean. I don't know how these things work, and I've never done this before. But the year that we were incubating the company was such a growth experience for me. I thought my clinical and academic experience had prepared me for anything, but this was a whole new ballgame. At the firm, we worked side by side with experts to build the foundation of Imagine Pediatrics. We collaborated with healthcare economists to create a patient selection algorithm, ensuring that we could identify the children who would really benefit most from our care model. And we designed and built a technology platform from scratch to support our clinical teams and families. And in future episodes, we'll talk about clinical product development and how that's different than what we're used to as physicians in traditional practice settings. We also met with a lot of potential partners and payers and had to continually refine our model and our pitch and build credibility in the market. The biggest turning point came when, in August of 2022, we landed a major contract in Texas. So we really needed to secure a value-based contract for at least 1,000 patients to be able to launch. And in August of 2022, when we had 3 co-founders at the company, and I was the only clinician. We landed a contract with 2 different payers in Texas, Medicaid managed care plans, to launch with almost 20,000 pediatric patients. And that would be value-based care agreement to provide these wraparound services to these very sick and needy children and their families. So that was interesting and definitely a whirlwind. And we very quickly had to stand up the team. We recruited some of the most amazing people I have ever met. And with just a few months to prepare, we really went into overdrive, assembling the team, finalizing our operational workflows, and scaling our technology to be able to handle the influx of patients. So we launched on January 1st of 2023, and it was really exciting, very mission driven, and super chaotic. I will never forget our first few weeks. We had so many different tasks needed to do to launch our program. And somehow all of us co-founders had overlooked the fact that we needed to order furniture. And so we actually had no furniture when we launched, and we were all sitting on the floor or using folding tables. So it was very startup-y in the beginning, but I have such fond memories of those days and the relationships and the work that we were doing. Everyone was working long hours and juggling countless tasks. Everyone wears a lot of hats in the early stages of a company, but the energy was just electric. We were all so driven by the mission to provide exceptional care for these children and their families. And these kids have had so many challenges navigating this very fragmented and broken system. And when we designed our model, we really sat down with a blank piece of paper and said, if we were to design this from the ground up, what do these families need? As opposed to when you're working in a traditional healthcare system, the ability to pivot or to redesign something is quite minimal. And often we will just take something that we've been doing for a very, very long time and maybe modify it slightly, as opposed to completely rebuilding it from scratch. And so that experience was one of the most exciting things to do, because I felt like we were able to create a product that would really provide exceptional care for these children and their families. Despite the challenges, there was a sense of camaraderie and purpose that made every obstacle worth it. And watching this model that we had designed come to life was one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. You've heard the joke that when you have a child, it's like a part of your heart running around outside of your body. And I definitely agree with that. I have 4 little kids myself, but with Imagine, I felt like it was almost like another kid, that was operating on its own. And so it was so amazing to see something that really started as a seed of a thought in my mind that started from true patient experiences and stories of these families and their children. And it became something that, hundreds of people were now having jobs at this very mission-driven organization because of that idea. And they all had things to do and things to operate within the model. And they were carrying forward the torch of that mission. And it was operating without me. And all of these other people were able to start infusing their mission into our model. And I found that to be really inspiring. So why am I sharing this story with you? My journey was pretty extreme. Most people will not want to quit their job or start a company or move across the country or work at a private equity fund. But there are so many ways for physicians to get involved in startups, whether as founders, consultants, advisors, or even clinical team members. And the skills you already have are actually exactly what startups need. I have had many physicians come to me and say, should I get my MBA? Should I go get a clinical informatics degree? And I think you guys are educated enough. I think you have a lot of degrees and a lot of experience. And I would love to walk you through some of the different things that I see physicians working on in the startup world, and things that you can get paid for, and things that can really make a meaningful impact. So I want to help build these pathways for other doctors, because as I moved into a more advisory role with Imagine Pediatrics over the past year, I have built my own consulting and advising company. And with that, I have the opportunity to work with many startups. And I find it to be really exciting to work with founders and other people who are really mission driven and excited and have an energy about them to get something done that hasn't been done before. I think it's creative. I think it's fun. I love the flexibility it's provided me. And I think there's so much need for physicians. And as I've been doing this, I've had a flood of physicians approach me and say, I really want to learn how to work with startups. And so I want to create practical resources for you all. I want to help you to hear inspiring stories that really help get the wheels turning in your own head, but also create some really clear pathways for how you could do some of this yourself. So if this story resonates with you, I hope you'll stick with me on this podcast. In future episodes, we'll explore how you can position yourself in the startup world and build your personal brand and find roles that really align with your goals and your mission. So thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Startup Physicians. If you're ready to dive deeper, please check out the resources at startupphysicians.com. We also have a link to our Facebook group, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Let's shape the future of healthcare together.
Are you a physician curious about breaking into the startup world? The Startup Physician Launchpad is a 6-week course designed to guide you step by step into consulting with startups using your clinical expertise. As part of our inaugural group, you'll get exclusive benefits, a discounted price, small group setting, and direct access to me for personalized mentorship. Don't miss this chance to launch your startup career. Use our code EARLY ACCESS for 20% off through January 21st. See you in the course.